Hello YouTube, how's it going? Sean here, and today we're going to be learning how to find all the notes on the fretboard, and fast. So there's 4 steps I want you to learn in this video lesson in order to learn the notes on the fretboard as fast as possible. There are so many reasons why you would want to learn the notes on the fretboard, and even though it takes quite a bit of time, it took me about 6 weeks to get all the notes down, it's really worth it. For example, if someone asked you, oh, play me a B minor, and all you know is your open string chords, then you're in a bit of trouble. Whereas if you know the notes on the fretboard, you'll be able to identify the note B and then make a minor shape at that place. Learning the notes on the fretboard also allows you to be able to play different types of the same chord in different places. And the benefit of that is that they all sound slightly different. Say you're hovering around the 5th position on the fretboard and someone asks you to play A minor. Well, initially you might only know to play A minor this way. Whereas if you learn the notes on the fretboard and someone asks you to play an A minor within a jam, you can also find it quickly there. Okay, so step 1, learn the musical alphabet. It's the notes that we use in the Western system of music. There's only 12 notes in Western music. It doesn't matter whether you listen to rap, whether you listen to rock, metal, grunge, shred, you listen to pop music, jazz music. All of these styles share 12 notes. They all sound so different, but every single song you've ever heard, if it's made within the Western context of things, is based on 12 notes. The Western musical system ranges from the note A at the very beginning and goes all the way across to the very end, G sharp. So the musical alphabet is similar to the alphabet in general, meaning that you're starting with A, but then in the musical alphabet you end on something called G sharp. So we have the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, which is 7 out of the 12. But then for 5 of the notes, they're called sharps. Once we get to G sharp in the musical alphabet, we don't go to a H, there's nothing that exists of that kind. We go all the way back to A again. Now G sharp doesn't exist in our normal alphabet, but sharps exist in the musical alphabet. So we go A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and then all the way back to A again. And so this musical alphabet just loops over and over and over again. So if you find yourself on G sharp and you're going forwards, which is to the right, you have to go back to the very beginning again. The trick to remember with the musical alphabet is that every note has a sharp apart from B, which goes straight to C, and E, which goes straight to F. Every other note has a sharp, and that's the easiest way to remember it. Just so you know, there's not just natural notes and sharp notes, natural looking like this, and sharp notes looking like this. But there's also something called flats, but we're going to look at this later. Don't worry though, there's still only 12 notes. But basically all flats are is the exact same note as a sharp, okay? So every sharp could also be called as something flat. When we're thinking of sharps, we're thinking forwards, which means this way. When we're thinking of flats, we're thinking this way. So we're thinking backwards. We use the word enharmonic equivalence to describe a flat being the same as a sharp. Think of it as looking at the same note but from 2 different perspectives. You're either thinking backwards, which would be a flat, or you're thinking forwards, but it's still the exact same note. So sharps can also be called flats, but they're the same note. Likewise, flats can be called sharps. So now that we're aware of the musical alphabet, we can now apply it to guitar. So what I'd recommend first and foremost when you're learning the notes on the fretboard is to begin with the 6th string, known as E. The reason for this is that oftentimes we're playing chords using the low string. If I want to play a G major, I can do like this with the open strings, but I can also play G major like this. But I wouldn't know that that was a G major unless I knew that that note there was G. The reason why I want you to start with the low E string is because it will kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If you know the notes on the 6th string, you also know the notes on the top E string. Step 2, learn the notes on the 6th string using the musical alphabet. When learning the notes on the 6th string, we need to think of our musical alphabet. Instead of thinking from the note A, like we normally do with our musical alphabet, we need to think from the note that our string is tuned to. In this case, because it's the 6th string, we're tuned to the note E. This means that instead of starting on A, when we're figuring out the notes on each fret, we're thinking from the note of E. So instead of beginning on the note A, like in the musical alphabet, because we're tuned to the note E, we're going to start on E in the musical alphabet. And this is what you do for every single string. You think about what that string is tuned to, and then you find it on the musical alphabet. Only there do you begin. As another example, if we were to try and find all the notes on the second string, which is tuned to B, instead of starting on A, we just simply start on B, and then make your way forwards. So let's find all of the notes on the E string. So as we were saying, we're going to start with E. So we start with E in the musical alphabet, and we're going to go one up each time. So the first fret, you guessed it, will be F. Fret 2 will be the next one along, F sharp, G, 3rd fret, G sharp, 4th fret, 5th fret, A, 6th fret, A sharp, 7th fret, B, 8th fret, C, 9th fret, C sharp, 10th fret, D, 11th fret, D sharp, and then we're back to E again. So we've gone full circle around the musical alphabet from where we started. The interesting thing about the 12th fret is it'll always be the octave of the open string. And what happens from there is, if we were to carry on, was we'd follow the exact same procedure and we'd have the exact same notes in the same order. So for example, if we carried on, we'd still get E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and so on and so forth, until we got up to the 24th fret, if your guitar has 24 frets, and we get another E. So you can see that the notes on the 6th string are just repeating themselves once again. So the 13th fret, for example, is F, just like the 1st fret is F, because it's the 1st fret after E, which is our 12th fret, or open string. And this is the same rule for all the strings. So once you get to the 12th fret, it's the octave of the open string. So it'd be exactly the same with the top string. So E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. So the number one thing you have to do first is learn the low E string and the top E string. And then we're going to move on to the A string. Actually, it follows perfectly the musical alphabet in this case. We're starting on A this time instead of E because it's tuned to A. So A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Then it followed the same pattern if we carried on. It would just repeat itself. Then we move on to D. So we're going to start with D on our musical alphabet this time. So D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. Then we move on to the 3rd string, which is G. So we're going to start on G in our musical alphabet. G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G. And then lastly, you'll be learning B. So B on the musical alphabet, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B. To summarize, you learn the top E strings first, then learn A, then learn D, then learn G, then learn B. And by that point, you've learned all the notes on the fretboard, because once you know them here, you also know them here. So from the open string to 12th fret, and then 12th fret to the 24th fret. The 12th fret to 24th fret is literally just a copy of the open string to the 12th fret in terms of notes on the fretboard. So that's step 2 and the most important step. Now we're going to move on to step 3. Step 3, use the dotted notes as checkpoints. So what I recommend is you get really good at finding the notes on the fretboard that land on the dots. So we have dots on the 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret, 12th fret, 15th fret, 17th fret, 19th fret, 21st fret, and 24th fret. The reason why you want to get really good at finding the notes on the dots is simply because they're going to be your checkpoints for when you're trying to find notes around those dots. The reason for this is that you don't always want to be starting from 0. Because for example, if you wanted to find D, it would be on the 10th fret. It takes a long time going E, F sharp. The best thing to do is find a note that's close to D. In this case, you would have memorized the 4th dot because that's C sharp, and then just think, oh, one up from C sharp is D. So if you have these reference points, you'll be able to find any note much quicker than if you're starting from 0 all the time. 0 meaning the open string. For example, if I need to find G sharp and I couldn't remember where it was because I'm a beginner with this, I can think, oh, well I know that G is on the 3rd fret. So if G sharp is next to G, then all I need to do is think 1 up from the 3rd fret, which means fret 4. So that must be G sharp, which it is. Likewise, if I wanted to find A sharp but I wasn't quite sure, I could think, oh, I know the 2nd dot is A. Therefore, 1 up from the 5th fret must be A sharp. which is our 6th fret. So use the dotted notes as a checkpoint so that you don't have to always go back to the open string. Okay, let me start to explain about all this sharp and flat business. So if we take one of our natural notes, let's say we take G. To find the sharp of G, we just think forwards. So every time you go up by 1 on the fretboard, it's going up by something called a semitone. So if we're thinking forwards, which means we're going this way, e.g. higher up the fret, then that means that we're thinking in sharps. So if I go 1 up from G, that would have to be G sharp then, because it's 1 fret above G. The flats, opposite directions, thinking backwards, which means you're thinking this way on the fretboard, which means that if I'm on G and I think backwards from G, then fret 2 would be what? G flat. Let's take another example. If I'm on A, if I go forwards 1, which means I'm going up by a semitone, then I'm changing to the 6th fret, which means I'm on A sharp instead. Opposite to that, if I go back a fret from A, which is the 5th fret, to 4th fret, then that must be A flat. So what you want to do is you want to think of your sharps and flat equivalents as always being in the middle between natural notes. So now you understand that philosophy with regard to sharps and flats, we're now ready to move on to step number 4. Have patience. It's going to take quite a while to get used to knowing all the notes on the fretboard, and that's why I recommend that you only start with the low E string and the top E string. Learn that first, get really good at it, and then only proceed to move on to the A string, followed by the D string, followed by G, and then followed by B. If you try to learn them all at once, you're going to leave yourself really confused. Repeat learning the notes on one string and then move on. Okay, tips. Tip 1, get someone to test you. What I recommend you do is write all the notes of the musical alphabet on a piece of paper. Give it to someone. It could be friends, it could be family. They don't need to know anything about music at all. And just get them to shout at random different letters from the musical alphabet. And then you have to find it as quick as possible on the 6th string. Likewise, do it on the A string, the D string, G, and B. Because it's not you doing it, it's someone else doing it, it'll make it that much harder and it'll really test your knowledge of your fretboard. Step 2, with the same game, increase the difficulty by setting a timer for 10 seconds. You've got 10 seconds only to find that note on the fretboard. And lastly, tip number 3, make sure to print off a copy of the fretboard with all the notes on the frets. That way you can reference it on your wall somewhere. Okay, that sums up my video on the notes on the fretboard. If you did enjoy it, please smash that subscribe button, like down below. If this has been useful to you, let me know in the comments section, and let me also know in the comments section any videos you'd like to see in the future. I hope this helps. Nice one, and I'll see you in the next video.